Well, greetings, test takers. This is Dean Tenney coming to you from my studio here in fabulous Las Vegas. And it's time for another installment on the explications of the NASAA exam. I keep getting people saying, Dean, what happened to G, which has 10 or 11 questions? I said, well, I haven't done it yet. Just completed a 65, 66 class. And I usually use those classes as kind of a prod to do some more work on the channel. So here we go. Here we go with 10 or 11 questions based on Section G of the NASAA Test Specifications. So first disclosure, we need to be aware of is capacity. So, we're all considered broker dealers, but in any one transaction, we're either going to be a broker or a dealer. We're going to act in our broker agency capacity or our dealer principal capacity. Let me give you an example of that. By the way, this I say to you, when you open an account with me at Morgan Stanley or Merrill Lynch or UBS, I say we're a broker dealer. But any one transaction you do with us at UBS, and some transactions we'll be acting as your broker, as your agent. We're going to contact another firm and do the trade for you, and you're going to owe us a commission. So when we act in our broker dealer or broker agency capacity, we charge commissions. We're acting as your agent. And I say in other transactions you do with us, we'll be acting in our dealer principal capacity. And we'll be charging you a markup or markdown. You'll be buying it from our inventory or selling into our inventory. If you're selling into our inventory, marked down. And if you're buying from our inventory, a markup. In each and every transaction, we will disclose capacity. That will be disclosed on the confirmation. So very testable. As you open an account with me at Morgan Stanley, and some transactions you do with us at Morgan Stanley, we'll be acting in our broker agency capacity, charging a commission and contacting some other firm. Other transactions you do with us will be acting in our dealer principal capacity, charging a markup and markdown. And each and every transaction on the confirmation will disclose capacity to you. And very important, we'll never be a broker and a dealer in the same trade. I mean, how could I act as, your agent in negotiations with myself about a markup? So we can either be one or the other. We cannot be both. We cannot be both. Now, if it's an investment advisor, you need written discretion for that. I mean, this is the normal course of business for broker dealers, but if investment advisors who are going to be acting as principals or agent need to make sure that's disclosed as well. But the main one here is about, it's not in the normal course of business for investment advisory firms to be acting as principals or agents. So investment advisor, that too needs to be disclosed. And you need a written disclosure of that. So let's just put that there, written disclosure for investment advisors to be acting as an agent, principal. Now, when we mean, again, this is the capacity. And remember, the investment advisor firm is a fiduciary. So, we expect to be paid by, fees, not transactions. So that's why that needs to have a disclosure. And that'd be prior to completion of the trade. All right, so we're talking about disclosures. Another disclosure is what we call an agency cross transaction. So as an investment advisory firm, I say when given the opportunity to save money, not take our orders from our buy and sell orders to a market maker or to a broker, to save money, we'd like to be able to do an agency cross. And so in an agency cross, we tell you when we open the account that this is something we like to do. And so, for example, if the bid is 15 and the ask is 15, and I have an investment advisory client who wants to buy and somebody wants to sell, it looks like, if I take this to the market maker, the customer who wants to sell is going to receive 15 and the customer who wants to buy is going to pay 16. So again, what I'm going to do instead is say, hey, why don't we do a cross at 15.50. You know, that way my investment advisor client who is selling gets 50 cents more than they otherwise would have got, and the customer who's buying pays 15.50, 50 cents less than they otherwise would have paid. And the only loser here, is the market maker. Now, one thing I can do is cannot recommend both sides of the trade. And then remember, I also have to tell you that make written disclosure to you that this is what we like to do. And when given the opportunity, when these situations arise, we'd like to do it. Now, when the situation does arise, I'm going to have to also get, again, written disclosure before completion of the trade. So say, hey, that situation has arisen, and written disclosure before completion of the trade. Okay, so we're talking about disclosures. Broker dealers have to disclose conflicts of interest, and conflicts of interest would include proprietary products. You know, who would have thought it? I didn't know it, but Morgan Stanley has their own mutual fund family. And again, that's not a bad thing. I found that out because I had one of the top performing growth funds. And if I'm a Morgan Stanley broker and I'm recommending you Morgan Stanley proprietary products, I need to disclose that to you. The problem with proprietary products is they may not be portable. I mean, it's not testable, but you know, the Morgan Stanley fund, if you leave Morgan Stanley, may not transfer to Schwab or Fidelity or, you know, Merrill Lynch, whatever the case may be. I have to disclose to you any additional incentives I get from getting you involved in the product. So I say, hey, last year I was a top producer. I hope to be a top producer this year. But it's not about, you know, the trip this year to Hawaii. It's about you helping your financial goals. Now, both NASAA and FINRA frown on sales contests, and, you know, but, you know, we can have them. They can't be about a particular product. Like it could be for mutual fund protection, but not like an actual particular fund. We have to tell you about whether we took them public, because if so, it's likely our research reports are going to be favorable. So, you know, favorable research after bringing the company. By the way, it doesn't have to be favorable, but, you know, just disclose to you in research reports whether we were the company that had a banking relationship. I should say has or has had underwriting relationship. Like, for example, I'm the broker dealer that took them public, or was part of the syndicate that did so. Okay, so investment advisor conflicts. So we're talking about conflicts and disclosures. So let's talk now about investment advisors and some conflicts disclosures that we need to make for that relationship. I disclose ownership in the recommended products. So you say, Dean, do you eat your own cooking? Do you have ownership in the securities you recommend to me? Now, the answer can be yes or no. Just needs to disclose. Now, if it's no, then, you know, it's got to be because I have some reason, like, you know, that my investment objectives are different than yours. And so, no, I don't own the recommended securities. You know, but if, you know, if so, then yes. So disclosure. So don't be careful. It doesn't have to be that I do or don't. It's just a disclosure and reasons. Disclose any gifts or any additional incentives, or, you know, any recommended products or things I want to put into your portfolio. I'll tell you whether I'm an agent of a broker dealer or not. So am I both an investment advisor rep? Some of us are simply investment advisor reps, you know, fee-based only, but some of us are both agents of a broker dealer and an investment advisory. And we have to tell you whether we're an agent of the broker dealer, of a broker dealer, and whether we're going to go use that broker dealer for the products and services and additional compensation, right? So you can see I told you about 10 or 11 questions here. So this is a kind of a big part about that. Again, am I a captive agent of the broker dealer, meaning I can only recommend to you proprietary products if a captive agent of the broker dealer. What that means is, I'm a Morgan Stanley broker and it's going to be Morgan Stanley. Disclose to you whether you can execute through other broker dealers. Can you or cannot? You can or cannot use another broker dealer for execution. My investment advisor, when I was a practitioner, I said, no, you can't use other broker dealers. I'm only set up to be using Schwab for execution and custody. So again, we disclose to you whether or not you can use other broker dealers, or not. And then we said any additional compensation we receive besides our investment advisory fee for, being the agent of the broker dealer. And then I said, remember, we disclose our trades if they're inconsistent. So if I can have trades, personal trades if inconsistent, again, that's okay. I just have to have some reason about why my personal trades are inconsistent with the advice I'm giving you. And I gave you the reason here, right? One major reason would be, my investment, objectives are different than you. If inconsistent with trades recommended to customer. NASAA. So NASAA has a template for model fee disclosures. It is for a model. It's a template or model for broker dealer fee disclosure. And you can use it any way you want. But, if you don't use this, you better make sure you make the same disclosures you would have made had you used the template. Now, we're not talking about broker dealer fees here for, investment advice. We're talking about fees associated with the broker dealer charges. Some of those might be issuance of a stock certificate. What are the additional charges you're going to, may encounter in this relationship? Well, excuse me. We might charge to this one, Frostmeat account transfer fee. If you want to leave us and go somewhere else, we might charge for a wiring of funds. We might charge you to. By the way, this says 66 test specifications, but I'm going to put in the 65 playlist because it's the exact same test specification. So there is no difference in the 65 and 66 in terms of what I'm discussing right now. Margin account interest, we're going to charge you based on the debit balance, right? That credit agreement. And we might charge you postage and handling. That one that kind of frosts me. And we give you 30-day notice if we're going to change any of these fees, so you can decide whether or not that is actually a deal breaker for you or not, in terms of doing things with us. That's not going to include the separate fees, which would be commissions when we act as an agent. So let's just put that here. This is not included in that document because this is elsewhere. And this would be on the confirmation, not in this model fee disclosure. And that would not include would be commissions, because those would show up on your confirmation, or markups or markdowns. We might even have an annual fee for your account and maintain that fee perhaps, and maybe we charge you for safekeeping perhaps. Okay, so those are some of the required disclosures that we're not talking about fees again for that. So let's talk about some unlawful representations, that you should not make. It looks like I'm messing up my number 2 was unlawful representations. It's saying 3 because I messed up the, so let me change this. 2, there we go. Oh, come on. 2. Okay, back in business. So one thing you can't do is you can't infer any approval of your qualifications by any regulatory body. Let me get my red out again. Any regulatory approval can infer or imply. So I joke, there's 2 nasty words, approve and guarantee are kind of words you better be real careful about using. Imply approval, can infer, imply approval of qualifications by any regulatory body. What that means is by SEC, the state administrator, the FINRA body. What else can't you do? You have to infer that your registration, same for your registration. So representation or representation, that's the same kind of a word. And then, on the disclaimer on every prospectus, we should know the front page of every prospectus says the SEC neither approves nor disapproves of any securities offering. They neither pass upon the adequacy or the accuracy of the information contained herein. Any claim to the contrary is a criminal offense, All right, so let's talk about performance guarantees. Those are a big no-no. Let's get out our red again. Performance guarantees, it's unethical to guarantee any kind of a result. My crystal ball is broke. So, we're not supposed to do that. Now, we have to be real careful if we use the word guarantee. So there are certain situations in which we can use the word guarantee. So unethical to guarantee performance. And what we got to be real careful of is making sure that if we use that word, let's make sure we're clear about you. This is a user. We just want to make that clear. So, maybe perhaps we have a parent company that's guaranteeing the debt of a subsidiary. So, in that case, I could make it very clear that the parent company is guaranteeing the debt of one of its subsidiaries. So just be careful about, what is being guaranteed. Has guaranteed the debt of a subsidiary. So I say this is a guaranteed bond. If I say it's a guaranteed bond, I got to make it clear to you that it's guaranteed by the parent company, and the guarantee is only as good as the guarantor, right? So, certain situations, we can also use that as it relates to U.S. Treasury securities, for example. So we just got to be a little careful about that. I'm going to be a little careful about that one. All right, so that leads us to number 4. Let me get out my pen here. Number 4 in this explication. And number 4 is going to be about client contracts and brochures, right? So client contracts and customer agreements. So in our investment advisory contract, we're going to spell out, let me get back my red, the services to be performed, we're going to spell out the duration of the contract, we're going to spell out the advisory fee and how that's being computed. Now, remember, usually most of us do it as a assets under management, a percentage. And if there's going to be, performance kind of base fee, then there's additional, rules and disclosures for that. computing that advisory fee, the amount of a prepaid fee that will be returned, and remember, there's other rules you get tested on about, how much I can charge more than 500 for, more than 6 months, that kind of stuff. I'll just warn you about that. Very important. Let's put this in all caps. No waiver of performance fees. No waiver of fees for underperformance. I can't say, oh, I let me down. I let myself down. I let you down. So, I'm going to waive my fees. No, 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 no. Very, very testable. Let's put this in all caps too. Assignment of the investment advisory contract only with the consent of the investment advisory client. That is very, very testable. You can't, that's one of the dangers in buying an investment advisory firm, whether or not the clients will agree to the assignment of that contract, right? So assignment only with the consent of the client. Then they give you, scenarios where there's either a change in control or, the investment advisory firm gets bought out. So they give you examples of like a majority interest change. Let's put that here. Change in control. If it's not a change in control, it's just notification. That's not considered assignment. But if there's a change in control, majority interest, then it triggers this. So, what I'm saying is it doesn't have to necessarily mean we sold our investment advisory firm, firm A to firm B. It could be that firm A's partnership has changed in such a way that there's a new majority ownership. So, for example, I own 30%, a retiring partner. I buy their 30%. Now I own 60. I was not a controlling partner. Now I am. So that's change in control. Again, it requires a consent of that. If it's just not, and that's not the case. Now, in terms of the investment advisory contract being in written form, this is one of those little areas, depending on your test prep provider. I say under the Uniform Securities Act, and that's what you're getting a test on, the Uniform Securities Act, the template, it must be in written form. It is required under the Uniform Securities Act. So that's the one I'm going to do. There's every once in a while you'll run into somebody say, oh, it's not required under the investment, Advisor Act of 40, but I just think it's silly because that's not what you're going to be tested on, right? And then remember, we're going to have use either Form ADV Part 2, A and 2B as our brochure. So let's put that in there. Form ADV Part 2 is the brochure, or we can use a brochure if we want, but if you're going to use your own brochure, it's got to have everything in there. So 2A describes the firm. And 2B describes the personnel. So we're going to give people that brochure. Now, if we give them the brochure, if I'm soliciting the client and I give them the brochure, so maybe it's like Dr. Jones, and I show up with Dr. Jones and I haven't given him the brochure 48 hours in advance. I have not delivered the brochure 48 hours in advance. And he says, hey, let's get busy on this thing. Let's get busy on this and managing the money. And he's trying to read this thing. And he says, Dean, I can say he's struggling a little bit with that. And I say, well, listen, I know you're kind of trying to read this whole thing. It's, it's almost possible for you to read this in a timely fashion. And you might want to check it with your attorney. And since I didn't give you the brochure, 40 hours in advance, you have 5 days to rescind. So, what I'm trying to tell him is he has like a 5-day free look period, if you will, to do that, right? Okay, material changes in that brochure. in the brochure, it means material changes, in the firm, because that's how we're going to disclose that. And so if there are material changes in our investment advisory, we're going to make that to our clients, each client within 120 days. Material changes will trigger delivery of updated brochure within 120 days of year end, or fiscal, I should say fiscal year end. I don't have any investment advisory firms anymore that have a, fiscal year end that is different now. Regulators just don't go for that as much as they used to. Yeah, we always offer that, by the way. The brochure also has to be free. We can't charge people for our brochure or make them reimburse us for a brochure. Some of us have some pretty expensive, stuff, that we send to people, so we can't make them reimburse us for that. And remember, we're going to have to include a balance sheet. Under Uniform Securities Act, it's going to be for more than $500. Let's put that Uniform Securities Act. If we're charging more than $500 and wanting to be paid 6 months in advance, or more in advance. And it's going to be more than, again, I would like you to know everything, but the state is more important than the feds. And for feds, that'll be more than $1,200 under the Investment Advisor Act of 40. Now, a lot of you are taking your investment advisor representative exam because you want to sell wrap accounts, where we're going to wrap the products and services of the broker dealer into a fee. And, we have to have a brochure that tells the client what's included in the brochure, what's included in the wrap fee and what is not included in the wrap fee. So if the wrap brochure, what is included and what is excluded. Okay, then the last thing here in terms of this number 4, which is client contracts and customer agreements, is the solicitor's brochure. So, some federally covered investment advisors hire solicitors as third party to raise money for them. And so if a solicitor has been hired by a federally covered investment advisor, there has to be a brochure that tells you the name of the solicitor. I spent a large part of my career. That's my thing telling me that we're past 30 minutes. I try and bring these explications in under 30 minutes, and it looks like I'm not successful. So you want to take a break? We're almost done, but it is what it is. So the name of the solicitor, the name of the investment advisor, who am I hiring? Who have I been hired to raise money for? So in my case, the solicitor was Gamma Global Investments. The name of the advisor was Carlisle, a federally covered investment advisor. So I tell you who I'm, raising money for, and we'll make sure you're not confused about, who I'm representing. I've been hired, so it's unlikely. By the way, I'm going to tell you, I don't like the federally covered investment advisor because they, are paying me. The nature of that relationship. So as I've been hired by the federally covered investment advisor, they're going to pay. You're going to pay them 2 and 20. 2% of assets under management, 20% of the profits. And so they're going to give you the first 2% to us as a third party solicitor for raising the money. So what we're going to tell you is, again, by the way, I'm going to give you also the brochure for the investment advisory. So you're going to get my brochure as a solicitor, the brochure of the federally covered investment advisor. I want you to sign acknowledging you read that, and you understood it, because they're getting, the federally covered advisor is going to send you documentation to sign that I did this correctly. And then are you paying any higher compensation through using the third-party solicitor. In my case, the answer is no, but it could have been a yes. I could have said, yes, it is going to cost you more money. All right, so we said this is a pretty target-rich section on your NASAA exam, and so the last thing we want to talk about is our last category here is correspondence and advertising, and that includes social media, emails, and websites. And here, the main test question is the regulatory authorities have said over and over again, they're more concerned with content, let me get my red here, than they are delivery. So they don't really care so much about how we're doing this, whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever it is. And all firms are going to have WSPs, written supervisory procedures, about correspondence advertising to include social media, email, and websites. And needless to say, that can't be deceptive and misleading. Deceptive or misleading. And as we said, we have to make it clear if we're ever giving you tools to use for this stuff. At what point is it a recommendation? At what point is it a library? Like a library of research reports or an investment analysis tool, or what is not. And again, this says Series 66 test specifications. I'm going to put in the 65 playlist because it's the exact same test specification. The only difference is that on the 66, you get 10 questions in this category. And on your 65, you get 11 questions in this category. So that is the only distinction. So I hope I'm making that clear. I'm going to be really upset if I haven't communicated effectively and you 65 start sending me comments saying, oh, it's a 66. It does not matter. For the most part, in the areas they overlap, the only distinction is how many questions is found in the category from 65 to 66. And usually the 65 has more, no surprise. Okay, so regulatory concerns, we've talked about social media in terms of that. And then broker dealers, a little different because we're handling prospectuses. And so you can't highlight or no, let's put that in caps. No highlight or altering of prospectuses. Again, how many brokers I've seen, oh, read this, I got a little line with an arrow over saying, read this. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Investment advisor advertising is a little more, sticky than is the other stuff. And so if we're going to use past performance, we better say it's not indicative of future results. Okay, what else? I think that's pretty much. We talked about WSPs in terms of the firm telling you what its policies and procedures are for whether you're going to be able to participate on social media and in what circumstances, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever the case may be. I would review in your paid study materials, testimonials and the rules for testimonials, investment advisors. That changes as of April this year. I'm not going to put it here because it's not part of an explication. It's more of an update, and I'd send that to you as well. Okay, so I hope you're finding these helpful, and I will be posting this in the 66 playlist and the 65 playlist. And like I say, when you see some section missing in this explication, we're closing in on getting it complete. Just let me know, and that prods me to continue to fill this thing out. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.